time for The Way It Is, and this Monday, as always, we have with us Hassan Omar, Senator Mombasa County. Welcome back.
Thank you very much.
You were missing in action last Monday.
Yeah, I had the inaugural address to the county assembly.
But it's good to have you back. Benjin Dolo, Ambrose Weda, Karibuni Nyote. Of course, Jim Smarties has been dancing. He had quite the weekend. He's been doing a jig. But speaking of jigs, all the dailies have captured Mr. Senator in a jig. You want to do one for us before we get into the discussion?
You know, what happens whenever you go to political rallies, the interludes is music. So once in a while, you shake the leg. So you build the momentum for the now.
Organize interludes in the way it is. You know,
absolutely. And I can tell you for a fact, I have no doubt about Benji's dance skills. And I'm not sure about you from the Jubilee.
Benji's hip hop.
Are you suggesting that Weda has two left legs? That he cannot coordinate? What do you have to say for yourself?
I think
your dancing skills.
One of the best dancers in this. I can assure you.
All right, we have quite a number of issues to go through, gentlemen. It has been a busy week, heavy in terms of news and the stories that have been developing. Let's begin with the county commissioners. The president bringing them back into play, talking about, he needs them in as far as governance at the county level. Of course, opposition has come out against the same. The governors as well talking about this, that move undermining their role in the county. Your thoughts, Weda?
I think the issue of the county commissioners is being taken out of proportion. The constitution required that the provincial administration be reorganized. The constitution also says that the county government is independent from the national government. They can only coordinate, but the president must have his people down at the ground, so that, for instance, if the president wants to go to Kisumu and attend certain works, the Kisumu County Governor, Jack Rangoma, is quite in order to say, Mr. President, for me, I'll be busy doing my work. So you're welcome to the city, but I'll be busy. The president must have his own people in security, in administration. Therefore, I think the mistake which was there was that the president used the word CEO. But people should understand, even if the president said, these are now my county presidents or my county governors, it doesn't make any difference. The governor is the governor. These are his people. And whatever role he purports to give them, it will not change the situation that the governors are there. They are the CEOs of the county. They are in charge and they work for themselves and the people of the county. The county commissioners work for the president. They implement the national policies. But because it is good politics, it also is a good punch bag, because the president now is at his lowest in terms of rating. Now they use that to punch and rubbish the whole process. These people have been there. We not only have the county commissioners, we have the police officers. They are called county what?
Commanders.
County commanders. We also have other organs. We have the county agricultural officers. We have county fishery, whatever. We have all of them there. It's only that because of the fear that we used to have for the PCs and the DCs, the moment you talk about county commissioners, especially when they came out in those that uniform, it is to say, oh, Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta, you want to bring back dictatorship. It is not that. He has to have these people at the lowest tier about it. And,
I appreciate one thing.
Yes.
He said, Weda said the president is at its lowest. And it was not because of the county commissioners. That acknowledgement, it was because since the inception of his government, he has done one wrong move to another wrong move, from one wrong decision to another wrong decision, one bad decision to another bad decision. But just to bring you to the thick schedule of the Constitution, I will read it in full. Within 5 years after the effective date, the national government shall restructure. So restructure can mean anything, including abolition. the system of provincial of administration, commonly known as the provincial administration. And this is the part they're missing out. To accord with and respect the system of devolved government established under this constitution. We qualified it because we knew there's a possibility of having a president like Uhuru. So the constitution was very clear that you must not act in a manner as to defeat devolution. And why do we say it? You see, you don't just look at the commissioner as a standalone point. You look at the context upon which how they have treated devolution generally. They have underfunded it. They have created parallel tiers on a diverse number of other mandates. They are advertising for jobs that are jobs now that are essentially jobs of counties, which I do not believe national government has any role to play in some of these mandates. They've hanged on to and empowered a ministry of devolution that has a budget bigger than many other departments and ministries. So therefore, the intention must be read holistically. At the very inception of the county commissioner offices to the very now, this decree, because it's a decree, because this restructuring envisaged a process that was judicious, a process that was participatory, a process that took on board, the various arms, including the legislative organs of this country. So therefore, I think what happens is that you look at these things in the broader sense, in the context that it is being presented, and therefore you come and say that this is a president who has sometimes typing errors. Now he has grammatic errors about calling people CEOs when they shouldn't be. You cannot devolve executive functions, they're yours. And therefore, I think broadly, devolution is under serious, destruction. And I think it's important for us to steer this ship.
But underfunding, are they not getting even more than the Constitution requires in terms of the threshold and money going to the counties?
You should have watched the Senate debate on the division of revenue. The audited accounts that they're using to proclaim the 40 or so percent is the audited accounts of 2009, 2010 of 500 and is it 23 or 520 something billion. The country now has a shareable revenue of over 1 trillion shillings.
1.3 trillion.
And it has an annual budget of 1.8 trillion shillings. So therefore, these propaganda figures are pegged on a 2009 audited account, and yet the Constitution places an obligation that we should have at least audited last year's accounts, because the Constitution says under Article 239, I believe, that the Auditor General must present these accounts in 6 months, and within 6 months to Parliament, within 3 months the both houses of Parliament must have passed this. So you delay the processing of accounts because inadvertently from 2009 to 2014, our economy and our revenue streams have grown substantially.
Let me clarify something. There is this talk about the government, the Jubilee government, undermining devolution. Very good talk. Strangely, it is coming from the very people who are undermining devolution. And the devolution in this country has squarely been undermined by the Senate. They have made the governors scared. The way they handled Wambora, they emboldened the MCAs. I saw some MCAs in Johannesburg, some of them struggling how they will come back to remove their governors. They have now done it in Kericho. They want to do it in Machakos because they know the Senate feeling they want to show the governors that they are the bosses. They urge the MCAs, you remove them so that they come and we show them we are the bosses. They are the ones who have undermined devolution. That is number one, and they must accept that. Secondly, on the question of restructuring the provincial administration in terms of the devolved system, you must remember that the provincial administration was structured in the form of the PCs, the DCs, the DOs, the chiefs, and the sub-chiefs, and the PS as you go up. Now, under the Constitution 2010, we now have the central government, the counties, the wards, as you go down. So that restructuring was supposed to take into account that, to remove the provincial commissioners, because we no longer have provinces, and then we go to the counties. That is the restructuring which is taking place. That's taken place in other fields, but because they fear the county commissioners, this is what they talk about so much. Number three, if you look at the sharing of revenue. The Constitution talks about sharing revenue from the audited accounts. It is not from the budget.
Of 2009.
And that
That is 2009. You see, that's where the...
Let me just finish.
You see, also,
Let me just finish.
Keep your points brief. We know there's so much other discussion.
I'm telling you the way you talk. You talk longer.
Trust me. You have to keep your points brief.
I think, so you saw the president saying, take all the functions, take all of them. Until the governors themselves said, no, it may be too much. Then they said, every year as we implement, more money is coming in. And as it comes in, the Senate is using that to actually knock down their own governors who are not able to make this, to manage the affairs of the counties very well according to. So we are saying that if you look at the county commissioners today, the president is taking root. His administration is taking root. Your devolution is taking root, and the country will be more safer.
Just before Benji comes in, I just want to because the impeached Governor Wambora is undermining devolution is a very cheap point, extremely cheap. You see, it's one occasion where there is before you facts. When you have facts, wakili, you convict. That's the irony of facts. So we don't know what will happen in subsequent impeachment processes like the one for Kericho governor. But I think just to pick up on that point, and that's why the point that needs to be made to the Kenyan people is that the audited accounts of 2009 also raises serious constitutional questions, because there's a responsibility on the Auditor General and the Houses of Parliament to have audited and approved accounts within 6 months from the time of the ending of that financial year. In other words, within 9 months, every account of the counties, of the national and county government should have been in. So I think let's also call a spade and not a big spoon.
Guys, morning. This constitution is a good document, but it has some very serious weaknesses. I was part and parcel of campaigning for this document under the Katiba Sasa campaign, under the auspices of the National Civil Society Congress in 2009-2010. We did a lot of lobbying, a lot of different ideas. This constitution borrowed heavily from countries like South Africa, from countries like the United States and what have you, and came up with a really good and sound document. However, this document has some very serious weaknesses. For example, this document assumes that Kenya is or will be governed in a very honest, straightforward, selfless manner. That's why the 6th schedule, for example, which talks about restructuring provincial administration, is very vague. Also, if you look at an article which has been bandied around, Article 232, just to give you an example, on the principles of public service, what will define public service, how will the Public Service Commission be established and what have you. Just to give you an example, and Wakil is here, 232.1, high standards of professional ethics, high standards. Already, let's just call this as we go down, fail. Look at the kind of people who are talking to Kenyans on even matters as important as security. So, high standards, professional ethics, fail. Efficient, effective, and economic use of resources, B, fail. We're still buying brand new cars from DT Dobby and Toyota Kenya for a coterie of people high up in government in a country where most live on under $1 a day. C, responsive, prompt, effective, impartial, equitable provision of services, really, fail. Involvement of the people, D, in the process of policy making, fail, which is what Halwale was telling the president yesterday, that you have to consult and involve and then agree, rather than just, back it down from up top. Accountability for administrative acts, really, fail. Another fail. And then F, transparency and provision to the public of timely, accurate information. F. I pride myself, yes, timely, accurate information. Look at Westgate, for example. Even as a UN alert came yesterday, that, a terrorist attack is probably imminent. Anytime you see a lot of the Westerners leave and they're depending on CIA, intelligence, you've got to know there's something there, because they act on something called chatter, which is the mapping of data after listening in on surveillance on satellite, different conversations between the different terrorist cells. But be that as it may, I have to say this just in very simple terms. Last week was a turning point in the Uhuru Kenyatta presidency. If his government fails, he will look back in history and say that last week was a turning point. I tweeted it, I've looked at it critically, and I tweeted it with good reason.
Why?
In the same week that he is standing there in front of the provincial administration, complete with the sufurias on their head. You know, that was just terrible optics. It is the same week that a lot of SMSs are banding around and Facebook and Twitter that Anne Waiguru fired the NYS director on SMS. We don't know if it's true or not. But the fact that that got traction to where the president's page was brought down. Yes, the fact that that was to such an extent that the president's page was brought down by State House, I think on Thursday, tells you a lot. In the very same week that the president stood in front of the country and said, and I quote, "I will pay Anglo leasing." Let me tell you something. And Tony Gashoka was on a show on this station telling the president to run away from Anglo leasing. You do not do stuff like Anglo leasing. If I was the president's cabinet secretary, I would have said, Your Excellency, I am not going to pay Anglo leasing, and you would have had to fire me. Sometimes you have to pay a price to stand on principle. You do not pay Anglo leasing. In a country where people are struggling to eat and to clothe and to, you know, protect their families, where people are that poor, you do not pay ghosts of Anglo leasing, especially because no political leader in Kenya today knows more about Anglo leasing than the former finance minister, His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta. So that is just a no-brainer. That is why Jubilee MPs ran away from this and refused to pay. That was extremely unbecoming. And if he says that the mistake is on the Solicitor General, his own former personal assistant, Jay Muturi, his own PA, and Githu Muigai, with whom they share a name, then fire them today. This is unacceptable. Kenyans are watching. They know what corruption is. You cannot run and pay what even Kibaki and Raila refused to pay. So last week was a turning point. Many, many, many issues, many, many, many blunders. I consider yourself warned.